state level data with IREC and other national partners for workforce initiatives such as the Energy Efficiency Career Map. NASCAS will use the data for case studies and summaries, and will also provide data to federal funding partners. We're hoping that this data will empower us to advocate for higher ACPU and fair labor costs in the SIR. So why should we conduct the survey? If workforce development, retention, and recruitment is the #1 barrier to continued success in the WAP program, we've got to have data for the purpose of retention and recruitment. We really just can't compete or effectively recruit. We certainly can't create a national branding campaign if we don't know what we're paying our workforce regionally and nationally. And then as a bonus, participating states and local agencies will have access to all of our state summaries and case studies that NASCAS conducts on the wage data. So how are we going to deploy the wage survey tool? So the state manager will have a choice to deploy the wage surveys. We're hoping that most do. They should be hosting a kickoff meeting to provide instructions to all of the subgrantees on how to conduct the wage survey. We recommended that states should launch the surveys with the subgrantees in February, and that the subgrantees go ahead and complete the wage surveys in March of this year. NASCAS will then assemble the data, send that back to the state WAP managers, and then we'll begin working on case studies. We will also share the de-identified data with our national partners. So speaking of, this is an example. IREC has been working on the Green Buildings Career Map. This is a great project. It's going to cover 55 jobs across the energy industry sector with over 100 advancement routes, including new green collar jobs. And we want to ensure that WAP is well represented in this effort. So the wage data will be used to inform this. We hope that we have we are well represented. We see ourselves fitting in well under the retrofitting section there. And in the U.S. Energy and Jobs Report from 2020 showed that the energy efficiency sector is going to produce the most new jobs of any energy sector. So what does that mean? We've got competition. So this career map will help with recruitment, student advisement, identifying career pathways, and it will serve as a vehicle to transition veterans. We are excited to help inform this important effort that IREC has undertaken. And so with that, I would like to hand things off to Jeff Wilcox from Vermont, who did a wage survey, and have him talk about the impacts of this wage survey on retention in the WAP.
All right, thanks, Andrea. My name is Jeff Wilcox. I work for the state of Vermont, and I'm the program manager for Vermont's program. Next slide. So as you can probably tell by looking at the map, Vermont's a small state area-wise. So we're lucky that we can cover our entire state to provide weatherization with just 5 nonprofit agencies, 4 of which are community action agencies. You know, we're a pretty tight network. This picture here shows all of us at a program gathering a year or 2 ago before COVID. So we can get everybody in one place and do trainings and stuff like that. So we're at an advantage there. A few years back, there was you know, some significant turnover at 2 of our local 5 agencies, especially at the crew position. One of these agencies in particular had over 60% turnover in the crew position. And you can imagine, you know, that can't anything but lead to, you know, poor quality work because you're hiring new people that don't have the experience and decreased production. We had it at 2 agencies, but in particular, one really significantly. And we were at these agencies, you know, the crew folks would come up to us, I'm talking us, the state folks that are commonly visiting the agencies for training and stuff, and would complain about their wages. Next slide, please. So that's our office, my office, Vermont Office Economic Opportunity. We said it's time to look at look closer at wages. We knew these agencies were the lower paying of the five, but only anecdotally. I mean, we saw the data every year when we got grant budgets in, but we never really kind of looked at it more than that until this opportunity here when we had to look closer. So, I decided to do a wage survey using information that I already had from the beginning of a grant year. What I did was I combined, I de-identified the data and shared it with the agencies. I shared it with the weatherization directors and their boss, their executive directors. In the next slide, I'll show you a little bit of kind of what I compiled. So I collected data on the core weatherization job classifications, the major positions that all five of our agencies had, and all of our five agencies have the same grants, same grant expectations, and essentially the same positions. They may call them slightly different, but it's very apples to apples, all these positions. So I just gave high, low, and average salaries for each job. And then I've done this a couple of times. My latest iteration, I asked for starting salary for new crew hires because I realized that was an important thing, with and without experience, just for crews, the most commonly sought after position. Or next slide, please. So what were the results of our survey? So it benefited these two agencies as well as the other three. They were able to get a gauge on where their salaries for the positions fell amongst the others and the statewide average. And this agency in particular that was lower paid, it was kind of ammunition for the weatherization director to use with his executive director and show, hey, we're paying low wages here. I think this is part of why we're having a lot of turnover. Wages did go up, turnover did go down. And we were in a process of a corrective action plan with these two agencies. And when our state office was meeting with the agencies, we were able to use this data as one of our talking points, and it helped get those. It helped. We can't take. I don't think the wages were the total credit for turnover going down and wages going up, but it definitely did help. There were other things going on as well. Next slide. So what's the cost of turnover in weatherization? It's huge. The saying penny wise is pound foolish definitely goes for the weatherization program. In my experience, I worked, just a little quick background, I worked 9 years at an agency, and then the last 14 years at the state. So I've so I know all five agencies well, and penny wise, pound foolish, and pensive in the long run, particularly when it comes to, in my experience, salaries and turnover. So hiring and onboarding can be a lengthy process. Why is it costly? Hiring and onboarding is a very lengthy process, I've found at the agencies. The result, a lot of lost time in production. When it takes 4 to 6 weeks to hire any of those positions, that's 4 to 6 weeks of your grant period that goes by when you're not getting production from that needed position. The cost of required training and certification is in weatherization. We all know that. And when you have a person that's been trained and is capable and doing good work and they leave, you have to start from scratch typically. At least we do in Vermont. There aren't a lot of folks that come in the door with all these trainings and certifications. So you're a lot of taxpayers' dollars invested in each person to let walk out the door. Next slide, please. So training costs for new crew hires. I got this directly from an agency, and it's from the agency that, this was a few years ago, that they had significant turnover, and they've really turned their program around. And you know, they were excited about this little presentation, and gave me data, and they, you know, they told me to my face, yeah, the data, the wage survey helped us get higher wages. Anyway, I've been sidetracked. So this is just a list of some of the different trainings: lead renovator, respirator, OSHA, training cost here on the left, and then the wages for your person to attend those trainings. 5,000 plus 4,800 is knocking on $10,000 door just to get these trainings listed here. And you know, this is just an entry level crew position. Once you talk crew lead and auditor and QCI, it's exponential. the amount of trainings and costs to get a new person up to speed. So you know, it's likely doubled. Can I see the next slide, please? I just want to, yeah, that's slow to come. Here we go. So I don't know is, you know, I said penny wise is pound foolish. You know, it's $1 an hour raise to an individual for a year. It's $2,080 in wage and about $900 fringe. So we're looking at $3,000 for a $1 raise for an individual. And if you say no to that and they walk out the door, you're looking at $9,000 to train and get somebody through all those trainings, which is 3 times the amount of a person to give them a $1 an hour raise. And I'm talking, you know, good folks that are well trained and doing good work. Walking out the door is it's penny wise and pound foolish. You know, retention's critical. It's 3 times more expensive to replace them. And it's currently an issue across the country in weatherization. I'm part of Energy Out West as well as NASCASP, and all the states I talk to workers, and I think of your program, your weatherization programs, are there people looking at this when people are leaving and asking for more money, and comparing the, you know, the production and their wages versus replacing that individual? Is that my last slide? Yes, I think so.
It is.
So
Thank you, Jeff.
that's all I have.
Thank you. That was
Sure.
really, really helpful and informative, and appreciated that perspective on the cost of turnover when you think about what it would cost to retain, and it's at least 3 times expensive to have them walk out the door in some situations. That's important to consider. So next up, we have the state of Illinois, Mick Prince, the state WAP manager there, and he conducted a wage survey, but then they kind of took it to the next level by performing data analysis on local median incomes and how core WAP positions compared. So I'd like to introduce Mick from Illinois, and also he'll be sharing some best practices with regards to career ladders and performance incentives.
Thank you, Andrea. Like Andrea said, we just kind of took the wage survey and took it a little further. It's something we've been doing for a couple of years now. So why would you do it? Well, I think you guys would want to know, are wages at your agency competitive? Are you attracting the right candidates? You know, that's important as well. Bringing in the right people initially definitely lends itself to retention. As mentioned already, you know, turnover rates, it's really huge in WAP. What does turnover do in a WAP program? I'm from Illinois, and we've got large grantees and we've got small grantees, and some of the smaller grantees might have 1 QCI that does energy audits also, and a coordinator. So obviously, turnover at an agency like that is devastating to production goals. Next slide, please. So the purpose of our wage study we wanted to examine the salaries of coordinators, assessors, and final inspectors. We're predominantly a contractor-based state, and so we didn't look at the crew positions. So like I said, we just did those three job titles. But we wanted to consider the relationship between weatherization staff salaries and the median income. We also compared it to a measure of poverty. And then we looked at similar occupations. I think we used building inspectors for QCI, and we'll look at that later. But in this slide, and in all of the slides, we're just looking at the QCI salaries in this presentation. But in this one in particular, we're looking at QCI salaries versus the median income. The blue bars are salaries. The red bars are the local median income. Next slide, please. So with the QCI salaries versus the median income, of the 52 final inspectors in our sample, 43 had salaries below the median income. And we did adjust that to include an estimate for benefits. We wanted to make sure it was an apples to apples comparison. The average percentage difference of salary for final inspectors from the local median income was 21.9% below the median income. The next one we looked at was we compared it to a family of 4 that qualifying for Medicaid. The red line would be the Medicaid qualification. The blue line would be salaries. Next slide, please. Again, of the 52 inspectors in our sample, 17 had salaries that would qualify their family for Medicaid. That was nearly a third of the sample. I'm always saying this, but I don't think the folks that work in our program should also qualify for the program. The average salary for final inspectors in this situation was nearly 35% above the Medicaid qualification. The next one, I think this one's really important. We compared the QCI salaries to building inspectors, and we used the lowest 25th percentile of income for Illinois building inspectors. That means 75% of the building inspectors in Illinois make more than what we were comparing it to. The red line is, again, the salaries for those building inspectors. And you can see the blue line is our salaries. In this example, 33 of our 52 had salaries below the 25th percentile for building inspectors. Next slide, please. So what were our observations? The salaries of weatherization staff are generally below the median income. There's a sizable portion of our final inspectors that could be eligible for Medicaid. And there's a big risk to weatherization agencies in that you could lose your staff to other industries with similarly skilled workers. Next slide, please. So these are some numbers from Illinois. We require all energy auditors, final inspectors, and coordinators to participate in a 10-week training for all new hires. They learn all about building science in this 10-week training. That costs about $15,000 per student. The state picks up those costs through an intergovernmental agreement with U of I. To fully train a new energy auditor in Chicago, in this example, it cost about $1,000. And that, of course, includes salary, fringe, travel, lodging, all-in cost to train a new employee. The cost to retain that same field staff person is around $71,000 fully burdened. Again, these numbers are from Chicago, but the loss in production from losing one energy auditor is about 115 energy audits annually. At a 11,800 average cost per unit, that's $1.35 million in production. That's the cost for them losing one energy auditor. So what are some best practices? I think everybody would agree that hiring tradespeople is a good practice for bringing on new weatherization staff. I think we need to align the pay with the trades. Next slide, please. We've got an agency in Illinois that has established a career ladder. They bring in all of their staff, their field staff, at $40K per year. After the 10-week building science course, that trainee receives a $5,000 increase. After they acquire the BPI Energy Auditor cert, they get a $2,500 increase. And then they're usually a couple years into the process by this point, but when they get the BPI QCI cert, they get a $5,000 pay increase. And then additional increases for other certifications. Multifamily QCI was the one that came to mind. Next slide, please. Performance incentives. I think this is definitely a best practice. I just put a reference there to 2 CFR 200 where it talks a little bit about incentive compensation. So something you can reference if you're not doing this currently, but we've got agencies that have established performance metrics and incentives based on meeting those metrics. In my opinion, meeting your production goals, not having findings from either monitoring or audits should equal an incentive for the WAP program. And it's my thoughts that this is a great way to take a baseline program or one that might be struggling and turn it into a high-performing weatherization program locally. That's all I've got. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mick.
Yep.
Yeah, I really like that idea of the performance metrics. I mean, if you can meet production goals and not have any findings, that's a pretty amazing accomplishment, right? We know it's a complicated program and that's hard to do, and folks should be rewarded. I like that a lot. Thank you. Before we open it up to questions, I just have 2 more quick slides. I wanted to remind folks we've updated our resources. We've added a workforce development site. We have tools such as links to the living median income, living wage calculators. We have links to the Department of Labor's core competency models. And this is where state managers would go, of course, to access the wage surveys. We tried to make it as turnkey as possible. So they have the templates, the instructions, and a PDF version. And hopefully it's a pretty seamless and easy launch process. And then just a quick plug, this is just the first effort for this workforce development working group. This is not a one deliverable and we're out. We have many years, I think, to work on this. It's going to be an effort. It'll, our conference is titled Building the Road Ahead in March, and that's exactly what we need to do. We'll be conducting 3 workforce development sessions at our virtual conference. So hopefully you can attend some of those. We'll have a national panel from NASIO, IRAC, and ACEEE, and then Washington State has commissioned a workforce study, and they'll discuss the progress towards implementation. And then we also have CETA and their partnerships in a innovative new apprenticeship program. So with that, I wanted to thank Jeff, thank Mick for sharing with us today, for your proactive efforts in workforce retention. I think the retention part is critical, and I think it has to be done first, because it's a little like pouring water into a bucket with holes in it. You could spend all your time and the water's just going to run out. So having that retention piece solid will maximize your efforts on recruitment. So I think that's very important, and we'll continue to share. And Ryan, if you guys if the poll doesn't work, it's not an issue, no problem. And that we can.
Andrea, no, we got it loaded up, so I can launch it at any time. Do you want to do it right now?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, great. Let's see here. Okay. Are folks seeing this poll here? Looks like people are voting.
Yep.
Just gonna give everyone a few more seconds.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what the people that say it's not an issue, what they're doing. Are they doing anything different, creative? Did they do something in the last several years for retention or recruitment? We just would really like to hear from them.
Okay, it looks like not too many more people are voting, so we can end the poll. Maybe a couple more people.
And then, so it looks like, just to share the summary, it looks like the number one response was folks feel it is a major issue. 16 respondents said it's major on WAP turnover and recruitment. 16 now. And then the next highest was critical with 9. So it's either major or critical for the majority of folks on this call, with 3 reporting minor and 3 reporting not an issue. So that's helpful, and that's consistent with what we've been hearing, from the states, what we've heard when we've had a chance to present at state conferences with their subgrantees at Energy Out West. So thank you for this. Appreciate that. Okay.
Great, thank you, Ryan. I just want to jump in and let everyone. Oh, my screen share keeps going away. This session was organized by CAP's Weatherization Leverage Partnerships Project. Many of you know Meg Power. I've actually stepped into Catherine Maddox's shoes this week to help out with the energy stuff, but we are seeking a project director for that role here at the National Partnership. So if anyone is interested in that or knows somebody who would be a good fit, please, please, please do let us know. I've got 2 more slides, and then I'm going to go into some questions, because we've gotten some questions. I am not an energy specialist, so I'm going to read the questions. I think we may have addressed some of it, but I just want to make sure that people get their questions addressed in some way, shape, or form. So the biggest question is, how do we compete with the private sector? Lots of people were really interested in, all of these things are interesting and important. I mean, there are costs associated with onboarding and all those sorts of things. But if we're increasing salaries to keep retention, how do we compete with the private sector? Does somebody want to take that question?
I can try. So I don't know if I understand the question properly. How did the agencies compete with the private sector? I think they've got the upper hand. I worked for a CAP for 9 years. It was probably the best job I had in weatherization, especially when I started. I loved being able, I came from construction, private industry, and, I got sick time, vacation time, but most importantly, I got training. I had career advancement. I didn't probably make a lot salary wise, but I got health insurance for the first time. I was able to have 2 of my children for a $20 copay. That was huge for a working person. But most importantly, I got a job that I, loved, and hence I've been here 23 years. I think we've got the upper hand, but families can't pay their bills with benefits alone. They need to get a livable wage to pay their bills, or they'll be receiving weatherization and the other benefits that the caps offer. I think that's the secret. I know there's a lot of questions on the SIR and stuff like that, which happy to give my opinion on it, a different question, but that's my answer to this one.
That is my next question. So I'll read it. At the partnership, we hear that a big problem for crew-based agencies is that competing with the private sector contracted wages to retain workers distorts the agency wage profile. Maybe that's the wrong one. Nope. Uh-oh, where did it go? That's what you just answered. Increasing salaries will make it harder for energy saving measures to SIR, causing WX to do less on homes, ultimately hurting clients. However, we will not be able to compete with the private sector. How would you recommend we balance this without creating a turnover in staff and still be able to perform needed measures on homes?
I've got a quick answer. I took some notes, and then
Good.
Mick probably has good answers too. So weatherization at the agency level is not easy. It's not easy at the state level. You got to do everything right to be able to make your units and come in within your allowable cost per unit. It boils down to procurement. You got to do good procurement to get the best materials at the best price. You got to have the right tools on the job so that your crew can work efficiently. You got to have training so your folks can do the work efficiently. You have to work like a private contractor. You need to work. Your crews need to work 4 10-hour days instead of 5 8s. It all boils down. There's a lot to it, but I know you can't skimp on wages, because it results in a poor culture and folks that get burned out and don't want to do the work the way it needs to be done. It needs to be done properly to be effective, and the clients to get the benefits. If it's not done correctly, it's all for just numbers, and it doesn't result in benefits, and sometimes it results in the detriment of the house. So I don't know, Mick's probably got an answer too. That's my quick answer to that one.
No, Jeff, I agree with everything you said. I came from a local agency as well, and had it. I clearly loved the program. I'm still working here 12 years later, but I had to move on. There was no career advancement, nowhere left for me to go at the local agency, and the wages just weren't enough to keep me there. Fortunately enough, I got on with the state, and I feel like I'm still having an impact. But some of the things we did in Illinois, and I know a lot of other states are like this, is that we've taken some of the LIHEAP weatherization funds and removed the SIR requirements for those, and doubled, in essence, our cost limits per home. We're able to braid DOE and HHS funding, and spend a little more per home, and do some measures that we felt were important to the home that might not necessarily SIR. So if your state doesn't have that ability or hasn't made changes like that, I'd say the folks on this call right now is the proper audience to sit down and talk with your state program managers, and maybe see if you can make some changes like that. But that's something we've done. I think furnaces are super important in the cold climate in Illinois. So we generally are able to find a way to replace the furnace, and of course, insulating and air sealing the home from top to bottom. We've made that a priority. And so regardless of SIR, when we walk out of the home, we're going to do all of those things. And I feel like that's a pretty good service to the client. And those are the things that are going to show the most bang for the buck. So
yeah, I'll just add, and we sounds like we have the same career. And I went to the state too, just because I love the program. I wanted to work with all the agents. But anyway, I think in Vermont, we don't have the problem because we're a really cold state, and we never have problems screening measures. But but you know, the job cost average, or we call it the allowable cost per unit, is something that agencies bump their heads on and stress out about. But again, it's all about all the things it takes to do right, to do good weatherization, procurement, having the right tool. It's less expensive to buy the right tool so that your crew workers are more efficient, get the job done quicker and better, than it is to buy cheap tools and not give them the tools. That's just one example. In training, get them trained so they can do the job better. There's no callbacks. They do it quicker and better. There's other ways to save the money and come in where you need to than skimping on wages, in my opinion and experience.
I totally agree. The best tool is a well-qualified staff member that gets it done quickly and creates that efficiency.
I know Meg had a question. Did I ask did I get wages from private contractors? And I didn't, because we're a 99% crew-based state. We are actually broadening that, and we're trying to bring in subcontractors. To be honest, we haven't really had a problem with crew workers going to other the home performance field. It's more they're sometimes they're leaving to work be a flag waver. They pay more than crew positions. So it's I didn't do that. I did recently find the Department of Labor of Vermont construction wages, and it's broken down by all the construction fields, and that's something we're going to look at more. And I did share that with our agencies because that was good information as well.
That flag comment struck me. We just spent 10 weeks training a new person in Illinois, and he promptly left as soon as the training was over, and he's a grave digger right now. He's making more money, but
wow.
But I was like, we can't compete with grave diggers. It's tough.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Somebody asked how the potential stimulus might affect all of this. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I think it just makes it more important. I mean, if there's going to be a stimulus, there will be a huge ramp up in workforce development, training, and if we can't keep people around, it will be a constant process of attraction, recruitment, training, and then we lose them. So we've got to find a way to solve that problem and find the solution to have a better workforce retention strategy. And I did see on here, I think somebody was asking if Mick, if your agencies were using those performance rewards, and I think they are. I think that was not a could do. I think that's an example of right.
Yes.
What's happening.
And that's not everywhere. I've got 34 local agencies, and so we've got some folks that are definitely doing that, though.
Okay, so it is in place today.
We have some agencies that give incentives and some that are adamant we don't want to give incentives. We want to give cost of living and increases based on merit. I can see how they both can work and how incentives can fail if it becomes expected by crew workers and then they don't get it, maybe for funding reasons or situations outside of their control that can actually, I've seen it demoralize some folks. They were counting on it, but like I said, outside of their circumstances, they weren't able to receive it, and their family didn't get the money they were counting on.
Yeah.
As far as the ramp up, we're going to be ramping up about 15-20% this year from our state weatherization funds, most likely. And I like your analogy, Andrea, that you can't have a leaky bucket. You got to keep the people who you want that you have that are, we're going to assume they're good, or you wouldn't keep them. But you got to get more people coming in, and we're bringing in subcontract we're going to be more of a hybrid state. And network, Vermont put out a front porch forum ad statewide to recruit people to the agencies. I think we're going to have to work together as a network, think outside of the box, and try hard. And most importantly, keep the people you bring in,
Right.
for sure.
I was just going to, Hetty Brown had asked about requiring people to pay back training dollars if they quit within a certain period of time. And I know DOE recommends that as a best practice when you're engaging your contractor base, but I think that's something to bring up and discuss with your state and your network. Is that something that you want to consider? If you're going to spend $3,500 sending an individual to a week-long training, pay their wages, and then 3 months later they take off and go to the utility. I mean, I don't think that's good stewardship of taxpayer dollars. I think it would be fair to ask for some sort of retention agreement. So I think my answer is yes. I think you could certainly develop something like that. And I think we're out of time. I believe, Ryan.
Yes, we
Yeah, sorry. I thought I was like waiting for Lindsay to unmute. Yeah, we are out of time. But thank you so much to everyone. Again, these recordings will be available for 30 days on the website, and the slides will be there as well. And don't forget to fill out the survey. You can do that on the main event page, but the link is also here in the chat. So thank you all so much. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.